Anyone that rides over the winter months in Vancouver knows that they can look forward to a few months of this.
Raindrops are falling.
Or this. Of course, any human being with any feeling below the belt will tell you that they prefer wet roads over stationary trainers at least a portion of the time. So the question really becomes, how do you ensure that you'll enjoy your ride when you go out in cold or wet weather instead of having to pack it in and head home early? The answer is in layering. Hi, my name's Kalen, and in the second episode of Tricks of the Trade, I will be sharing some methods that might help keep you happy while riding in cold or wet weather riding here in Vancouver. So as we start to talk about layering, it's worth mentioning that there are actually 3 different layers to consider when you go out cycling. So, or I guess actually any physical activity, but first is the base layer. That's anything that actually comes into contact with your skin. Next, we have the insulating layer, which will vary depending on what the weather conditions are like outside. Obviously, the warmer it is, the lighter that insulating layer can be. And finally, we have the shell, which is somewhat like the insulating layer in that it will vary depending on what the weather conditions are like outside. Obviously, your shell consideration will be slightly different if you are going out in rainy weather as opposed to windy weather. But for the interest of time, I'm only going to be discussing the base layer today. I will post links to further discussion, so I'll do another 2 videos, one on the insulating layer and another on the shell. I'll post those both on our Facebook page, so be sure to like us on Facebook and check back there to see the added discussion if you're interested in that. So, as we talk about the base layer, what we're going to do is work from the outside, or from the most distal points in. And the reason for that is, when we get cold, our body takes essentially blood away from our outer extremities and brings it into our core to help warm our organs. So we're going to address these more distal points first, so that way we are going to be sure to stay warm. So in order to do that, the first thing that you'll probably want to have in your arsenal of clothing are a nice pair of gloves. These are actually my gloves right here. They are Gore. Obviously these are probably the last things that you will put on, but they're some of the more important things to actually have. I have a pair that are waterproof as well. Another pair on the market that I really like right now are the ASOS rain gloves. They're a closed-cell neoprene, so they work really well. But again, gloves are a great thing to have, and a heavier, having even different pairs of gloves, so some heavier than others, will help you pick what will be best depending on what the weather conditions are like. Next, we also have a nice pair of socks. So these are a winter weight sock, so they're made of merino wool. Summer weight socks tend to be a lot lighter, obviously because you want more circulation, but a nice pair of winter socks will go a long way. Another thing that you'll want to consider are shoe covers. I have a pair from Gore this year that I absolutely adore. They actually keep my feet relatively dry, or as close to being waterproof as I've ever found, and actually quite warm. But a good pair of shoe covers are another thing. So, gloves, a nice pair of socks, and shoe covers, I'd say are probably 3 of the essentials. Next, what we're going to say are some kind of leg or knee warmer. A leg or knee warmer is going to go on underneath the shorts. So they go from about mid-thigh to, for leg warmers, about the ankle, and for knee warmers to just below the knee. Runners are familiar with this. As you get cold, your heart pumps a little less efficiently, so it doesn't lubricate your joints as well, so you're a little bit more prone to injury there. Obviously, covering your knees is a very good option. Next, we actually have arm warmers. So arm warmers will go on just over or actually just under the jersey, but they will go from about the upper part of your arm to just about your wrist. So again, that's the arm warmers. Next, there are, we should talk about the shorts very briefly. The shorts are actually part of the base layer because they do come into contact with your skin. There are winter shorts that actually have some roubaix material on the inside. So it's like a brushed kind of felt, which is a little bit more insulating. If you find that you get cold quite easily, that may be a really good option. Another part of the base layer, which I find very useful, is actually a base layer. So this one happens to be merino wool. It's short sleeve. They make long sleeve versions, and they also make sleeveless versions. You will want to pick the one that you want depending on whether or not you find yourself getting really cold in cooler weather, or whether or not you heat up quite quickly. So I tend to like the short sleeve ones as opposed to the sleeveless or long sleeve, just because I find them quite comfortable. But this is also another good option. So again, the base layer. Next, what you may find you want is, especially if you don't have any kind of jacket or anything with a high collar, something that actually protects your neck from wind. So Rafa makes a scarf, if you will, that does just that, and it can actually be worn a little bit higher over the face if you needed something like a balaclava. It doesn't come all the way up, but it does cover it partially. So that may be good as well. Again, the idea behind the base layer is to have something that wicks moisture away from the skin, but then also dries quickly, so it doesn't chill you, because obviously sweat is the body's natural response to heating up. It's trying to cool you down. Obviously, we know what the weather is like outside, so we need to try and counteract some of that, and that's what base layers are there to mitigate. The last thing that I will mention is a cap. Cycling specific caps tend to have portions that actually come down over the ear. That's why it looks like that. These I find quite helpful because I can't stand it when my ears get cold, but obviously also a lot of heat escapes through the top of the head, so having a hat or something to cover your head will help trap some of that heat in. So this is also a good idea as the last portion of our base layer. So that concludes our discussion on base layers. If you have any questions, feel free to email me at the shop. My email here is events@lbproshop.com, or leave us a comment on Facebook. So again, be sure to check back on our Facebook page as well for the links to our discussions on insulating layers and shells. Hope you enjoyed our video, and we'll see you next time. Happy riding!